In Russia, the boreal forests stretch for millions of miles. The tundra is a desolate stage that hosts the most fierce battles for survival, and the endless steppe, a world in itself, shows all the harshness of this vast ecosystem. In the north, through the imposing Russian taiga, a copious herd of caribou marches steadily southward. Winter is approaching, and with it, the harshest and most ruthless face of wild Russia. A world away to the east, the Stella's sea eagle soars through the skies with its flamboyant and majestic flight in search of a juicy prey. Meanwhile, in the south, the elusive Asiatic black bear sniffs out fresh berries and nuts among the thick, leafy vegetation. Never before had nature been revealed in such a pure and primeval state on the planet. This is Russia, a wild world the size of entire continents, where nature is seen in its purest and most untamed form. In the heart of the ruthless Russian Arctic, a ringed seal returns after a prolonged and freezing dive into the mysterious depths. After several minutes in the dark, icy waters, the pinniped slowly ascends with a full stomach, seeking a revitalizing and necessary breath of air. Ever closer to the surface, the marine mammal swims with a firm and confident pace, completely unaware that above a white and silent death awaits it. As it barely pokes its head through the breathing hole, a massive polar bear, the apex predator of the Arctic, with a single brutal swipe, shatters its head, instantly securing a robust and fat-rich prey that will help it endure the cruel and relentless winter. Of course, in a natural empire as untamable as Russia, the laws of survival are dictated by the force of claws and the fury of fangs. Accompanying the numerous caribou caravans on their migration south, wolf packs do not take long to congregate to claim their share of the spoils. Moving as a synchronized unit of born killers, the canines advance across the steppe in search of a suitable victim. At the slightest sign of weakness from one of the ungulates, they do not hesitate and engage in a prolonged and exhausting chase that inevitably culminates with a massive prey surrendering to their bite. Far from the domains of the wolf packs in the Russian Far East, an Amur leopard, a true ghost of the temperate forests, plans a new and stealthy slaughter. In its calm stroll through the coniferous forests, the feline has spotted a young wild boar, grazing completely unaware at the mercy of the predator's cruel intentions. With the boar unsuspecting, the feline slowly approaches and then, being only a few feet from its prey, launches its impregnable and lethal attack. The altercation, which is more a summary execution than a combat, lasts barely a few seconds and finds its end with the carnivore devouring the mammal. But not even the majestic Amur leopard can avoid being disturbed by the arrival of the true and all-powerful predator of the Russian food chain. Hidden among the foliage, revealing its golden eyes and a few timid reflections of its camouflaged coat, the Siberian tiger exerts its absolute dominion over all the wild species of the Russian taiga. One after another, from gigantic cervids to tiny lagomorphs, every species submits to this voracious hunter, who from time to time appears to remind of the immutable harshness of the food chain. Located between Eastern Europe and Northern Asia, with its more than 6.56 million square miles, representing about 1/9 of the globe's land surface, Russia is the largest country on the planet. In this massive territory, the size of entire continents, everything is larger. Russia's colossal dimensions cause it to harbor a countless number of biomes, each more impressive and breathtaking than the last. Russia is a complex puzzle of ecosystems forged by adversity, united in a single place that borders on fiction. To the north, the Russian Arctic stands as the last frontier of the world, a domain sculpted by ancestral ice and the relentless sea. The pack ice, a vast desert of floating ice, extends to an unreachable horizon. It is a kingdom of white and blue, where the ocean becomes land, and the cold is the constant that challenges life. Further south, the tundra breaks through with its treeless plains, a landscape that stretches for more than 1,243 miles from north to south, crossing the entire Russian immensity. Beneath a surface layer of mosses and lichens, the permafrost is the geological force that governs life. Seasonal thawing gives rise to thousands of ephemeral lakes and swamps, creating vital refuges in a desert of rock and water. Advancing inland, the immensity of the taiga, the boreal forest, unfolds its dark green mantle with more than 4.63 million square miles. This forest mass is the largest in the world. The taiga is a labyrinth of firs, pines, and larches that filters the sunlight. Its river arteries, like the mighty Volga River, collect water from the immensity, being the source of life for millions of species. Right in the heart of this vast territory, the Ural Mountains rise as an ancient backbone. This mountain range of more than 1,553 miles is the geological scar that marks the division between Europe and Asia. To the south, the steppe unfolds like an endless sea of grass, a vast expanse of prairies that stretch to the borders with Central Asia and Mongolia. In this biome, life is governed by the wind that mercilessly whips the open rolling plains. Here, herds of ungulates move like a tide in a constant search for new pastures under a relentless sun. In the depths of Siberia, Lake Baikal holds a fifth of all the planet's surface fresh water. This aquatic abyss is the deepest and oldest lake on Earth, an aquarium of endemic life in the middle of the steppes. And in the Far East, a totally different world rises over the Pacific. The remote Kamchatka Peninsula is the domain of fire and ice. More than 300 volcanoes rise over its territory, with dozens of them active, threatening to bury everything under ash and lava. These ecosystems are home to more than 26,000 species of wildlife. From the volcanic fury of Kamchatka to the frigid waters of the Arctic, Russian fauna struggles to survive in the most untamable ecosystem on the planet. In this mosaic of biomes forged by hardship, the struggle for survival is written day by day, and life clings to every corner with an unheard-of fierceness. One of the wild species that precisely embodies all that indomitable fury is a voracious inhabitant of the Russian Far East. Weighing just over 88.2 pounds and nearly 4.9 feet long, the Amur leopard is one of the tyrants of the Russian food chain. With the long Siberian winter succumbing, this feline sees its ecosystem come back to life, which means an exponential increase in its prey. Little by little, the snow melts, the ice gives way, and birds, mammals, and all kinds of life forms take over every corner. Of course, this feline is more than willing to become the cause of death for all these species, showing them the inescapable harshness of the trophic chain. With the sub-zero days coming to an end, its soft and dense, pale, cream-colored coat begins to become more vivid as an impressive adaptation to the colorful habitat to come. Its rosettes, distributed throughout its body, are also part of a meticulous mimicry strategy that allows this feared feline to disappear before the eyes of its prey. With the element of surprise on its side, this skilled hunter often becomes the last thing seen by Siberian roe deer, sika deer, wild boars, and even more modest prey like hares, badgers, rodents, and birds. Upon spotting a possible meal within its vast territory, the leopard does not falter and immediately initiates a careful hunting strategy. After several months under the dominion of ice, the predator will always prefer a robust prey that provides a substantial meal. The chosen one on this occasion is a wild boar that, unfortunately for it, is in the leopard's domain. Driven by hunger, it begins its calculated assault that will inevitably lead it to capture its prey. Instead of launching a violent chase that could lead to exhaustion, losing substantial amounts of valuable energy, the hunter does not despair and carefully assesses the situation. With the prey distracted, it begins a slow advance, using every obstacle in the forest to its advantage. A fallen log or a small rock can be the perfect hiding place to maintain the surprise of its attack. Aware that a false step could mean the mammal flees every inch, is devoured with extreme stealth. After this exasperating march towards a slaughter already in position, the leopard remains unperturbed, always with its gaze fixed on its target. It is not until after several minutes of stalking that it finds its opportunity, and without showing even the slightest doubt, launches into a fleeting run at almost 37.3 miles per hour, consuming the last few feet that separated it from the boar. The final blow is delivered with an imposing horizontal leap of more than 16.4 feet that brings it down on the boar's back. The ungulate, completely surprised by the predator's brutality, tries to break free, but it is already too late. The leopard digs its sharp claws into the herbivore's body, preventing any possibility, however minimal, of escape. The assault lasts no more than a few seconds until the carnivore reaches the prey's neck and sinks its long fangs, crushing its trachea. The verdict has already been handed down, and little by little the boar sees its world fade, sinking into a deep sleep from which it will not awaken. Immediately after hunting down the mammal, the feline does not waste time, and with its enormous strength begins to drag the prey. With countless scavengers roaming its lands, it is not at all advisable to stay and devour its victim in the open, so it usually takes it to a safe place. Almost always, the top of a tree is the perfect place to finally disembowel it comfortably and consume it. Capturing a prey of such a size is a real luxury for this robust feline, because by devouring on average about 11 pounds of meat a day, its sustenance is guaranteed for a long period. Of course, with such a prized prey in its possession, there will never be a shortage of those interested in stealing it, a situation to which the Amur leopard knows no response other than extreme ferocity. Attracted by the exquisite aroma of fresh meat, grey wolves are not slow to show up for a banquet to which they were not invited. The leopard's best defense will always be to keep its loot out of the canine's reach. However, when its carcass is in the open, a violent combat is about to begin. If the threat comes in the form of a lone wolf, the leopard will not hesitate to confront it and protect what it has worked so hard to win. This is a power-to-power duel between two bloodthirsty predators with a carcass in dispute. In a fight where every bite and scratch is thrown without the slightest caution, only one will be left with the right to possess the corpse. Here, the leopard's unparalleled agility usually prevails, as do its sharp claws that dig like daggers into the canine's body. Often, after a few well-aimed swipes, the wolf gives up its intentions and turns away before being seriously injured. In contrast, a very different case occurs when the adversary it faces is not a lone dog, but a whole pack of these fearsome predators. Faced with a large pack of up to 8 formidable grey wolves, there is no defense on the part of the Amur leopard that can contain such an onslaught. The most prudent thing for the feline is to renounce its dignity and abandon its prey with the arrival of the harassers. It is a difficult decision, but also the most sensible to avoid getting hurt. Fortunately for the leopard, the Russian spring will bring it many more hunting opportunities, and at this time of year, prey is an almost unlimited resource. The same triumphant entry of spring that promises copious prey to ruthless carnivores is a premonition of food abundance for herbivores, the announcement of the arrival of green and nutritious pastures. The spring thaw gradually saturates the valleys, releasing the budding of the first pastures. Deep in the boreal forests, a dense morning mist covers the clearing, and from it emerges an imposing figure. The European bison, one of the heaviest ungulates on the continent, walks unhurriedly, enjoying the now pleasant temperatures. This mammal stands over 6.6 feet tall to its hump and boasts a body mass that far exceeds 1,984 pounds, almost a ton of muscle and bone that moves over the Russian ecosystem, making the earth tremble in its wake. Its thick, dark brown coat is a natural armor against the extreme climate. This layer of hair is especially dense around its neck and head, creating the impression of a protective shield. However, the rising heat of spring marks the end of this natural armor. With the return of the sun, the bison drags its body against tree trunks, accelerating the molting process. As a result of this ingenious behavior, large tufts of hair get caught in the rough bark, a visible tribute to the changing season. When the European bison appears, a marked hump rises above its shoulders on the horizon, an imposing structure that gives it an unmistakable silhouette. This tissue reserve sustains its vast body during the winter famine cycle, and by the way is quite depleted by this time of year. The head of this titan is wide and massive, topped with short, sharp horns. The horns are dark and point upward, a warning of the fury it can unleash. Far from leading a hermit-like lifestyle, European bison choose to gather in large herds. The herd is a mobile block, an army of herbivores that moves through the boreal forests, consuming anything that even seems edible. As they advance, the bison rip up the grasses with their rough-toothed tongues. Spring is their time of maximum intake, when food is abundant and vegetation is tender. Consuming large quantities of grasses, shoots, and young leaves, their voracious appetite keeps them busy for up to 18 hours a day. Given their uncontrolled intake, the herds remain on the move, avoiding the depletion of resources in a single location. Although peace and harmony generally reign, or at least the illusion of it in the herds from time to time, it is broken. Loaded with testosterone, and all sense of tranquility vanishes. Females, the bulls engage in resounding combats where it will be established which will be the lucky stud to have access to the females. Usually a dominant male holds this privileged place in the herd, but with the cows releasing pheromones into the air, suitors are not slow to present themselves to try to overthrow the robust monarch. As soon as an intruder dangerously approaches the harem, the dominant male fixes his eyes on him, and a passive but tense display of power begins. The resident male slowly turns towards his rival, a warning gesture that requires no sound. The bull lowers his head to the ground, and his powerful hooves scrape the earth, raising a cloud of dust that mixes with the morning mist. Suddenly, a deep growl escapes his throat, a declaration of territoriality, a clear warning urging him to retreat. But the younger male does not even flinch and does not hesitate to accept the challenge, imitating his opponent's posture. Both bison face each other. It is a silent measurement of strength, where courage is as important as musculature. When intimidation postures fail, the encounter inevitably becomes a violent collision. The two giants rush at each other, accelerating their bulk into a dry, thunderous impact. The sound of the clash echoes in the hungry packs of grey wolves, and the also robust brown bear can pose a serious threat to the survival of these ungulates. When a hungry predator stalks the herd does not flee but groups together. The strongest and most vigorous bulls form a defensive circle around the cow's calves and the thick and impregnable wall of muscle and horns. If a wolf pack approaches the defensive formation dangerously, the nearest bull charges without hesitation in an onslaught launched with excessive force. A well-aimed kick from the powerful hind legs or a thrust with its robust horns can be lethal for any predator that dares to see these giants as prey. While herds of bison fill the boreal forests further south of untamable Siberia, Lake Baikal is home to another of the most impressive life forms of the Russian ecosystem. In the middle of the mysterious Lake Baikal, a geological scar carved into the heart of Siberia, appears the Nerpa, a freshwater pinniped exiled on a continent thousands of miles from the nearest seacoast. Weighing just about 110.2 pounds, This marine mammal is a compact survival machine, a creature designed to inhabit hostility. Its body is a torpedo of muscle forged to glide fluidly in the bottomless depths of the lake. A dense layer of fat, which can be more than a quarter of its weight, envelops it, providing essential thermal protection against the icy embrace of the lake. Since the water of Baikal remains near freezing point all year round, even in spring, this natural coat is more than convenient. The Nerpa boasts a thick silver-grey coat, a camouflage that hides it in the underwater gloom. Its eyes, large and dark, are designed to capture every last ray of light in a world where light is often a privilege. Its head is small in proportion to its body, which facilitates its progress underwater. With its sustenance swimming several feet from the surface, the also known as Baikal seal has been forged by the crushing pressures and the eternal gloom of the depths. When hunger strikes without hesitation, the Nerpa launches itself alone into the waters in search of some fresh marine snacks. The more than 5,249.3 feet of the lake's depth are ideal for this expert swimmer to dive into dark abysses, where the basis of its diet dwells, such as the Baikal oilfish, a very fat-rich prey that represents a vital intake that keeps the mammal's heat furnace in constant operation. In each dive, the Nerpa manages to descend to depths exceeding 656.2 feet, and to spend submerged for up to more than an hour, a feat of endurance in a hostile environment. For this, it collapses its lungs, as well as reduces its heart rate to a minimum, maintaining calm, while moving like a silent projectile through the inert water. Since spotting its prey is practically impossible in an environment plunged into darkness, this skilled hunter uses its vibrissae highly sensitive whiskers to detect the slightest pressure waves created by its potential victims. Upon perceiving what appears to be a school of oilfish, the Nerpa unleashes an unexpected burst of speed towards what it hopes will be the place of its feast. In this hunt, there is usually no strategy or preamble. Having the fish on its radar, the seal launches and captures it in one bite, repeating this nutritious and very high-fat fishing over and over again. After several successful dives and catches, the pinniped returns to the surface, where it recovers energy, breathing fresh air and acclimatizing. This comforting moment is a complete luxury that it cannot afford during the winter days, because in the months of most intense cold, the lake is covered with a layer of ice that exceeds 4.9 feet in thickness. To breathe in a display of its cunning, the Nerpa keeps an opening free of freezing in the thick ice, constantly digging with its strong front claws. This hole, known as a light, is its only connection with the atmosphere, and therefore its greatest vulnerable point. But all this, at least for now, is in the past, and the Baikal seal can enjoy the momentary spring abundance. Despite the fact that for most of the wild inhabitants of animal Russia, the thaw brought by spring means good news for the female Baikal seals, it is a moment of tension. Having raised her kumutkan, as the pup is known, in a small floating ice cave, the rise in temperatures means that raising it is a race against time. If the ice melts before the pup grows enough, it might not be ready to face the treacherous and dark waters of the lake. With intensive breastfeeding, the pup soon develops in record time, tripling its weight in a few weeks and molting its winter white fur to a much more convenient grey. The days do not stop, and sooner rather than later, the small floating cave melts, launching the tender Pusa sibirica into the water. Fortunately, after the very diligent work of its mother, the small pup is ready to face the hostile conditions of Baikal, even defying the abyss on its own. Having finished its responsibility in raising the Nerpa, momentarily joins a group on the surface, a large agglomeration of seals on an ice floe or a rocky shore. These large congregations of mammals are a fundamental behavior in their social dynamics, as well as an ideal time to forget about the icy waters for a while and complete their winter molt. But this comfort is an anomaly in the Russian kingdom. While the freshwater pinniped enjoys the remaining ice floes in its inland lake, far to the north, the disappearance of the true sea of ice becomes a sentence of starvation. The Russian Arctic, a domain sculpted by ice and adversity, is the now not at all welcoming home of the polar bear, a titan with black skin and snow-white fur. This powerful colossus, the largest terrestrial carnivore on the planet, is a true titan with specimens reaching up to 1,543.2 pounds in weight and exceeding 9.8 feet in height on their hind legs. With a natural dense coat in the form of a layer of fat under its skin that can measure more than 3.9 inches, the ursid is more than adapted to the sub-zero temperatures of its remote home. Its fur, which appears white, is actually composed of hollow, transparent hairs that form a light trap, scattering sunlight and camouflaging it perfectly against the snow and ice. The polar bear has been personally designed by the creator specifically for survival in the most extreme cold. These unparalleled adaptations to glacial temperatures are a surprising advantage when the Russian winter rages, but at the same time a condemnation if temperatures rise abruptly. Spring and the beginning of summer are the most critical time for this white predator. The rising heat turns its vast kingdom of firm ice into a labyrinth of water and floating chunks. The sea ice sheet, its hunting platform, fragments and retreats at an accelerated pace, and its survival depends on a frantic race against the dissolution of its own ecosystem. While in winter, the cunning hunter waited near the breathing holes for the ascent of its favorite prey, the ringed seal with the thaw, this strategy is not viable, and the mammal must adapt to a new reality dictated by starvation. Now the predator must rely on its stealth and patience on the scattered remains of the pack ice. The white colossus moves like a ghost over the slippery surfaces, using every crack and snow mound to hide its immense silhouette. When it spots a ringed seal resting on an ice floe, the bear begins its relentless stalking. It crawls on its belly, advancing slowly without disturbing the fragile balance of peace. The bear must shorten the distance without the seal detecting the slightest movement, because if it slips into the water, the hunter loses the opportunity, since in the sea it is slower than its prey. With a little luck, the ursid manages to get close enough to the pinniped, ready to launch its violent assault. The final attack is an explosion of power on the ice platform, a quick jump and a swipe with its 5.9-inch long claws. Surprised by the ambush, the ringed seal has no time to even attempt an escape, and almost always with a direct blow to the skull, the predator secures a robust prey. The capture of a single ringed seal can secure its caloric intake for more than a week. While it is a feast in the spring, the time between captures is getting longer and longer, so starvation becomes a daily bread. While the male bears had their personal feast during the long Arctic winter, the she-bears were not so fortunate as they sacrificed the winter hunting season to dedicate themselves to raising their small cubs, entering a total fast. Isolated in a den under the snow all winter, with the arrival of spring, the female emerges along with her two cubs, having lost a few pounds as a result of lactation and with a voracious appetite. Now the female has a double task, that of hunting for herself and teaching the young the art of survival in their hostile habitat. With each passing day, the heat causes the ice to break catastrophically, so the bears are forced to swim long and endless distances between the floating ice floes. Of course, the ursid is a powerful and resistant swimmer, capable of propelling itself with its huge front paws, being able to travel more than 62.1 miles in a single desperate journey across the sea. But swimming burns precious calories that the predator should be storing. And when the ice disappears completely, the bear is expelled from its domains straight to dry land, to the desolate coast or the tundra. Here the forced fast begins, which can last for more than 5 months, when autumn makes its appearance, bringing back low temperatures, and with this, the polar bear will once again take possession of its empire in the north. For the time being, the white-furred mammal lies with an empty stomach on a last floating piece of ice, or on the shores of a deserted coast. While the weight-decimated polar bear enters a prolonged famine with the onset of summer, the rest of the Russian ecosystem plunges into a frenzy of resources. The warm climate gives life to every corner of the steppe, tundra, and boreal forests. To the south of this vast territory, precisely in the depths of the rejuvenated taiga, the sable, a long-bodied mustelid, is one of those wild species that enjoys the much more bountiful Russian summer. With a weight that rarely exceeds 4.4 pounds, this exotic species is the representation of Russian biodiversity. As summer consolidates, the days are now a precious commodity, and the sun barely gives up its position on the horizon. Its fur, which in winter was a silky and protective layer against extreme temperatures, begins its molting process, and the dense skin gives way, lightening the weight of the small mammal. The also known as sable glides with unparalleled grace over the forest floor. Its paws, wide and slightly webbed, give it formidable traction on the damp moss and fallen pine needles. These prodigious acrobatic skills make it a three-dimensional predator of the taiga. Its world is not limited to the earth. The highest branches are its observation post. The sable propels itself with its semi-retractable claws, ascending the rough trunk of a larch with the grace of a miniature feline. From the heights, it scans the canopy, looking for the movement of a squirrel's nest or the wake of a nesting bird. The forest, now in full explosion of life, is a festival of vulnerable prey, more than willing to be incorporated into its diet. The rodents, confident due to the abundance of new vegetation, expose themselves in sunny clearings, something this tiny hunter does not take long to detect with its sharp hearing. The sound of a small mammal gnawing on bark is an unmistakable sign of a potential meal, and the sable descends from the tree with astonishing celerity, becoming a flash in the foliage. The chase is usually underground and fleeting, as it doesn't matter if a mouse manages to take refuge in its burrow. Thanks to its elongated body, the marten can penetrate even the narrowest dens with complete ease. After a brief small-scale chase, the conflict is almost always resolved with a precise bite to the prey's skull, a quick and efficient act that ensures caloric intake without wasting valuable energy. Although summer brings with it infinite prey, the marten in fact is not limited to being a voracious carnivore, but rather is a true omnivore in a behavior vital for its survival. In the clearings where the sun penetrates and the wild blueberry and raspberry bushes overflow, the mustelid does not take long to appear and devour their fruits with a contained voracity, savoring the sugar that turns into fat stored under its skin. The seeds of the Siberian pines are perhaps the most coveted treasure. The forest dweller uses its strong jaw to break the hard pine cones and extracts the nuts that are dense in oil and protein, a pure energy supply that is worth the effort of crushing. Besides food to spare the heat of summer drives socialization among these generally solitary mammals. With the air filling with pheromones, the male undertakes a marathon journey through his territory, following the chemical trail left by the females. When two martens meet, communication is based on smell and a series of subtle squeaks and growls that are only heard in the intimacy of the forest. The mating ritual is a courtship dance, where the natural aggressiveness of the predator is tempered by the desire to perpetuate its lineage. After the encounter, the female retreats to prepare the complex architecture of gestation. Thanks to a masterful biological adaptation of delayed implantation, the female has up to months until the fertilized egg begins to develop. This ability ensures that the birth of the young coincides exactly with the beginning of spring, the time of greatest food abundance. But not everything is rosy in the life of these compact hunters during the summer. Their small size makes them a more than accessible target for other more robust predators like foxes and lynxes, either to steal one of their prey or even devour them. However, what the sable lacks in size, it makes up for with an excessive aggressiveness. When cornered, the ebony hunter transforms into a whirlwind of teeth and claws, capable of causing serious injuries even to carnivores that triple its size. To avoid these inopportune encounters, the sable chooses to enter a deep sleep during the most intense hours of midday, where it can take refuge from both extreme heat and dangerous predators. Almost always, the base of a pine tree where the shade is deep and the ground is cool is a more than pleasant place. When evening finally falls, the mustelid awakens from its momentary lethargy and becomes active again, roaming its vast territory of up to dozens of miles. While the taiga breathes in the humid heat to the south, the Earth rises with an excessive geological violence. The Caucasus Mountains, a scar of rock and ice that separates continents, tear the horizon, and here summer is expressed with the brutality of sunlight at 9,842 feet of altitude. In this vertical domain, where the air is sharp and the terrain is a death trap, lives a species that has perfected the art of climbing. The West Caucasian tur, or mountain goat, is a creature forged in the hostility of altitude, an ungulate sculpted in muscle and bone that defies gravity itself. With a weight that can exceed 220.5 pounds, this mammal is an indomitable beast of the steep precipices. Standing with a robust silhouette and a deep chest designed for the thin oxygen of the summits, the most imposing feature of the male is its horns. A pair of massive arches emerges from the skull in a formidable curve. These horns are dark in color and are ringed with growth ridges that tell its age, being able to measure more than 3.3 feet in length in the oldest specimens. They are not just tools, but visible badges of status. Its fur, once thick and pale, has lightened with the arrival of summer. This coat now takes on a grayish-brown tone that blends it with the mountain granite. But since summer at these heights can transform from scorching sun to freezing hail in minutes, the ungulate maintains a warm layer of hair that insulates it from the cold. Another of the challenges the tur faces amidst its rugged habitat is the cliffs. Faced with these, its true key to survival lies in its paws. Its hooves are a work of art of nature, acting as pincers divided into two flexible and curved toes. The inner sole is soft and rubbery to provide non-slip traction on smooth rock, while the outer edge is hard and sharp, functioning as a chisel to grip minimal fissures. In an environment where every step could mean the last, the tur advances with an unparalleled grace, announcing a declaration of vertical dominance. The daily life of this horned creature during the summer is governed by a suffocating need for food and the search for safety. Since the Caucasus is a mosaic of steep slopes, snowfields and subalpine meadows, food is not a particularly abundant resource, not even during the bountiful Russian summer. At these altitudes, vegetation is scarce, and every bite counts when it comes to escaping starvation. As soon as the sun rises, the herds move with extreme caution, descending from the nocturnal rocky shelters to the lower alpine meadows, looking for the first tender grass before the sun heats the stone. The diet of these ungulates consists of resistant grasses, lichens and shoots of dwarf shrubs, devouring these humble foods in a methodical grazing that extends for several hours a day. Throughout this marathon grazing day, the herbivore comes to consume up to 13.2 pounds of vegetation a day. In addition to calming hunger, this copious intake is crucial in order to store the energy needed to withstand cold nights and the constant effort of roaming its rugged home. The constant search for food is interrupted only by the vital need for salt. The turs descend dangerously to reach natural salt licks, mineral outcrops, where they replenish the electrolytes lost through intense physical activity. Salt consumption is calculated in these valleys. These altitudes in the Caucasus are often the places where predators wait to ambush. Grey wolves and lynxes wait for the ungulate to abandon its vertical defense to launch their surprise attack. Faced with this, the turs live in a perpetual state of vigilance, scanning the environment in search of dangers. Their eyes with horizontal pupils maximize horizon perception, being able to detect the subtle movement of a hunter hundreds of feet away. If danger materializes, the response is immediate and efficient in the form of a sharp whistle from a sentinel male that alerts the entire herd. The group does not flee downwards, but quickly ascends in a frantic and very intelligent retreat, seeking the worst and steepest sections of the mountain. These terrains, deadly for any canine, are considered a pleasant stroll by the tur. As the sun rises, the herd begins its ascent to the safety of the height. The altitude offers cooler temperatures and an impassable barrier, usually settling on rocky ledges facing north, where the shadow cast by the great peaks creates a comfortable refuge. Here they rest and ruminate with unwavering vigilance. Of course, the almost total absence of predators in these remote corners does not guarantee peace. In a species where males are extremely temperamental, fights to establish themselves as the dominant of the herd are more than daily. When two bulls cross paths in a not at all gentle encounter, the air becomes charged with tension, and the rest of the herd watches from a safe place. Motivated by hierarchy, the ungulates engage in resounding combats. The dominant male slowly turns towards his rival in a warning gesture. In this battle of intimidation, both lower their heads and scrape the ground, trying to dissuade their adversary. Often avoiding bloodshed, the less corpulent tur decides to renounce his intentions. But when both males are similar in strength, physical confrontation is inescapable, and the giants rush at each other in a dry, thunderous impact. The horns entangle and press with brutal force. They twist and push, trying to make the rival lose his balance to deliver a decisive blow. After a tense struggle that can last for several minutes, the dominant tur uses his weight to his advantage, forcing the retreat of the younger contender, giving the victorious male the status and privileged access to the best pastures. Fortunately for the defeated, the mating season, which occurs in the middle of winter, is still far away, so perhaps he is still in time to gain control of his own harem. Just as summer imposes its dominion on the heights of the Caucasus, the pulse of life accelerates at the opposite end of the Russian Empire. In the Far East, deep within the Kamchatka Peninsula, the warm season unleashes a scene of biological frenzy. The Sea of Okhotsk, a vast grey water mirror, yields to a relentless tide of life. Here, thousands of miles of oceanic waters have been the home of a species born in fresh water. Now an uncontrolled and inexplicable genetic impulse drags it back to its home. Millions of salmon specimens congregate at the river mouths, waiting for the signal. The time for the great summer migration has arrived, a collective feat dictated by nature. After having spent years in the Pacific accumulating fat and strength for this single purpose, upon entering fresh water, the metabolism of these fish undergoes a dramatic transformation. The salmon's skin, once a metallic silver-blue color, begins to change and is tinged with an intense red, sometimes dotted with dark green. This coloration is not a camouflage, but a warning of the energy they possess. The males develop a fearsome physical characteristic, the kype, a lower jaw that lengthens and curves into a hook shape. This bladed weapon, made of bone and cartilage, is not for eating as they stop feeding completely, but rather is the perfect tool for fighting other males on the riverbed. The body, once slender, becomes compact, thick, ready for the fight against the current. Each fish transforms into a survival machine with a single mission in mind. The salmon leaves the safety of the ocean, venturing into the river arteries of Kamchatka. The rivers are icy, fed by the melting of glaciers and volcanoes. The first challenge is the speed of the current, which tries to drag them back to the sea. But determined to achieve their feat, these infinite schools swim against this force, beating their tails with enormous power. Their pectoral fins become oars that push the body through the rapids. Every yard gained inland is a painful victory against gravity and the force of the channel. This rugged journey takes them through rocky canyons, waterfalls, and water jumps, on a journey in which, if they encounter a vertical barrier, they do not hesitate to launch themselves directly at it. With a perfectly synchronized tail slap, the salmon propel themselves out of the water. Hundreds of specimens attempt the same jump over and over again with tireless courage. Some fall wounded, battered against the rocks, while others are left exhausted in the pools at the base, at the mercy of fate. But instinct pushes them to continue to climb and not give up. Of course, faced with such a huge congregation of fish, the migration is an itinerant feast, for all the predators of the peninsula, a massive donation of protein and fat in an ecosystem that is normally scarce. On the riverbanks, the Kamchatka brown bear, a giant of more than half a ton, waits. The ursid positions itself in the rapids where the water is turbulent. And here, where the fish are vulnerable and struggle to maintain their position, the bear throws powerful blows with its paws, feeling the movement of its greasy prey in the water. In a flash of speed, the ursid catches a specimen in a powerful swipe. Birds of prey also join the slaughter. The Steller's sea eagle, with its yellow beak and powerful talons, flies over the current. The imposing bird of prey swoops down from the sky, picking up the weakest fish. Thus, salmon becomes the currency of life in this untamed world. The few specimens that survive these assaults conclude their dangerous journey in the backwaters of the river's headwaters. These are shallow and crystal clear waters in the same place where the creature was born.